Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another morning with the manager. And I think we are all getting better with this. And I think that's the first time that I actually start this without any technical difficulties. So, welcome, everyone, to Mornings with the Manager. And I encourage you to uh, connect with us and send us also questions that you may have. And I will try to, with one eye, see the questions coming up and trying to respond to that. Let me start off today. I want to talk about a few items that I think might be of interest for you. Item number one is we received a lot of questions about the face coverings and wearing a mask in public, so I will talk about that. Item number two is, of course, I will have to talk about the budget and the council action this past Tuesday. Item number three, I will talk about, will deal with reopening of certain city facilities. Of course, the library and the sports center are right now at the forefront of those opening efforts. And the last item will be talking in general about the reopening of our economy here on the Monterey Peninsula. And I want to share with you some of the thoughts that that I have and that I share with council as well as our staff. And I want to share with you also those thoughts that I have. So, with that, let me start talking about face coverings. That's a big topic for many of our residents, and I've received several questions about that over the past 2 weeks. And while we try to respond also to each individual, I think it's absolutely the right time to talk about face coverings. The face covering ordinance, or let's to be clear, the face covering order came from the Monterey County Health Officer and was issued on April 30th. Since then, it is mandatory to wear a face covering when you're in public. However, there are exceptions to that rule. If you are outdoors and engaged in outdoor activities, you're not required to wear face covering. Or if you have trouble breathing, you're also not required to wear face covering. So, outdoor activity, it can be anything like a walk up and down the street is outdoor activity. Of course, you like me sometimes like to have clear black and white guidances on topics like that. In this case, it is a guidance that leaves rooms for interpretation. And if you see somebody walking up and down a street, up and down the recreational trail, etc., and they are not wearing a face covering, they are basically possibly falling under the category of engaging in outdoor recreational activities. So the order specifically exempts those activities from mandatory wearing face coverings. Of course, they also exempt those folks that have trouble breathing. Um, what you see on the here in Monterey is what you see also across the state. Our enforcement agencies, by that predominantly the criminal justice agencies, have transferred this order that exists in many counties to a educational approach. So the enforcement agencies across the state have implemented face covering orders to educate our residents and let them know, and our visitors to let them know that the face covering order is in place. And again, the whole state is enforcing it in the same way as we do. What does this mean? It means that we are educating folks, reminding them of wearing face coverings when our officers encounter people like that. We went out to the wharf, for instance, on March 30th, and had a sergeant and a community services officer just chatting up the visitors coming back at that time to the city of Monterey, coming back to Fisherman's Wharf, and reminding them of wearing a mask. We also, and that's education, we also last weekend partnered with Fisherman's Wharf Association as well as Gathering for Women, which is a social service provider for homeless women. We partnered with those two entities, City of Monterey, Gathering for Women, and Fisherman's Wharf Association, and we are handing out free face coverings at the head of Wharf Number One. And we are hoping that by giving people who are coming to Monterey, coming to one of our main attractions, which is Fisherman's Wharf, that we get the message across and handing out masks. We will do the same this weekend as well. And we are expecting to hand out another 2,500 face covering to those tourists that are coming to Fisherman's Wharf. The the face order on the wharf again extends also for all the businesses, and that's another critical element that I want you to be all aware, that with the reopening of California, also the businesses are required to serve customers with their only if they wear a face mask entering that business. That applies to restaurants, that applies to hair salons, that applies to a variety of businesses that they have to require their folks to wear face coverings. And I tell you that we, as the city of Monterey, are notifying restaurants, notifying businesses if we get reports from you, the public, where you feel this is not being followed. The Wharf Association uh, are basically our tenants. The city of Monterey, as you know from many years ago when we had discussions about the wharf leases, the wharf restaurants, the wharf souvenir shops, the wharf businesses such as sport fishing and whale watching, etc. They are all our tenants, and we are going also through our property management channels to enforce that. And I tell you that I know that the wharf concessionaires are in strong support of that as well. Uh, the 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 issue to address specifically the wharf and to require them a face covering there is basically what I just tried to answer, Kurt, with respect to handing out wharfs and making the business work their customers together with their employees to ensure wearing face mask coverings. So our educational approach will continue. We will be out there educating folks. And yesterday or earlier on Monday, I received an email from one of our residents. She pointed out the face covering issue, pointed out to two specific businesses, and I can assure you that within the hour of reading those emails, I am forwarding those emails to code compliance as well as to property management, because one of those businesses she was concerned about was actually a concessionaire of the city of Monterey, not located at Wharf Number One, but at another spot, and we are addressing this. It is not a sufficient answer that I'm giving you right now, and I know you wanted, some of you may want it absolutely clear, and you want to uh, have a different approach to basically enforce that. What I'm telling you, though, is that that's the general sentiment of all criminal justice agencies across the state. And these are basically also the cards that we have been dealt with that order that allows for certain exceptions if they are in the context of outdoor recreational activities. Now, if they enter into businesses, again, face coverings have to be worn. With that, allow me to talk now about the budget. And The budget was in front of council this week, Tuesday, and it was actually a decent long meeting, meaning we all signed off at about 11 p.m. However, we had quite a number of public comments that were basically mixed between the social justice theme that surfaced about 3 weeks ago with respect to the killing of George Floyd and subsequently also the killing of the person in Atlanta that is asking us to relook at how are we policing and how are we funding policing. So we had quite a number of calls for our suggested budget, asking us to look into police funding issues. But we also had a number of callers that were calling in support of the current approach that we have in policing, but they were also talking about the library, recreation programs, and also the budget in general. So I thank everyone who was calling in. You all have been heard by us and the council. And I think in the end, the council had a very interesting discussion about several aspects of the budget that ranged from the school resource officer at Monterey High School to a diversion person, maybe to be coming onto the campus and helping them to with the students and their issues they have, as well as discussing strategies and how to reopen, rehire employees to staff programs that we are bringing back. The budget itself reduced our overall general fund by $21 million, and that's no small amount of money. It represents about 22% of our general fund. And as I explained 2 weeks ago, the budget basically reduces funding in all departments. As you know, we already had reduced funding in the library and in the Parks and Recreation department and also the conference center. But it also reduced funding in other departments, such as the police, such as public works, city manager's office, finance department, human resources department, information services department, etc. Um, Also, the council had a very intense and a good discussion about the idea, the proposal from staff to create a specific reopen and hiring fund. And what we try to do with that is to tell the council, okay, put some money into that reopen and hiring fund, which is a centralized fund. And then from that centralized fund, we can basically allocate funding towards parks and recreation, the sports center, and the library as we are reopening those departments. So, what you need to understand is that parks and recreation, as well as the library, received a fixed amount of money. That's what the department heads told us they need to operate from. In addition to that funding, now we created as a kind of centralized fund that will allow both departments to tap into that fund should they exceed the cost that they had budgeted. And when we proposed this to the council on Tuesday night, we put in a starting capital of $900,000. And in the course of the night, and through interaction with the public, through interaction among council members and staff, that amount of money was basically increased to $1.5 million. And so we put now an additional $1.5 million in total into the reopen and hiring fund. So again, just to explain that a little bit more, municipal finances are the most complex finances that you can find, by the way. It's actually pretty straightforward to have private accounting rules, but municipal finances are a little bit more complex, I believe. So we have now funding for the Parks and Rec department that includes the sports center. We have funding for the library, and both are based on our best projected cost for reopening returning customers. So this funding has been squared away. Now, in addition to those two fundings, we created a centralized funding that basically allows us now to divert money from that centralized funding to the parks and recreation program, sports center, and to the library. So that is right now $1.5 million. And what the council also very specifically said, we want to augment that reopen and hiring fund through salary concessions we receive from our employees. And so we have been starting to negotiate with our um, bargaining units. And when I use the word negotiate, that is the wrong term because all bargaining units are in closed contracts. So we do not have the traditional tool of discussing terms of contract. As a matter of fact, when I and our HR director are meeting with the bargaining unit, I preference the word that I am asking them to kindly consider give us salary concessions. I make it clear to our bargaining units that this is a request and this is not a negotiation. And I am proud to report to you that uh, many groups came back to us and offered us salary concessions, including our firefighters who did an exceptional job in responding to us by giving us salary concessions, plus also dialing back significantly over the past months the use of overtime by just not really taking vacation. And with that, we were able to really manage a big chunk of money through overtime in the fire department. Also, as you know, the executive management came out as one of the first groups to reduce the salaries by, I believe, approximately 10%. But also now we have other commitments from the fire chiefs. These are all the division chiefs, assistant fire chief, from the groups of the police lieutenants, and I believe I forgot to mention the managers. The managers group, which includes about 60 employees, also came back to us with a salary concession of 7% from July 1st to December 31st. And again, you need to be aware that as a public agency, we are dealing with contract issues. It's not something that you can just dictate to the bargaining units. You're depending on their goodwill. Those discussions are still going on, and with two other bargaining units. And I'm hopeful that we will also come to good terms with that. But what that will do again is it will add now those salary concessions also into the central reopening and hiring fund. And we are hoping that we get another $700,000 in additional funding into that pot of reopening and hiring fund to bump it up north of $2 million. Like I shared with you, these are all good news, and the reopening and hiring fund, the $2 million, then allows us to allocate the funding in a surgical way. What I mean by that is this: if you work in the library and the library needs another staff person there, this is a straight line how we transfer the money from that reopening fund to the library. Simply said, if they need $80,000 for a staffing solution, $80,000 goes into the library out of the reopening and hiring fund. For Parks and Recreation Sports Center, it's slightly different. If you have a physical fitness educator out there, physical fitness coordinator out there, you know that this coordinator, that instructor, will have certain program income coming back. if we sell a class, so to speak, and we have program cost for that, those costs will be calculated against the cost of the actual person conducting that service. And that's the aspect that I call surgical, because if you have $60,000 coming in program revenues and you need $80,000 for the staffer to satisfy that service need, the delta is just $20,000, and we can then divert $20,000 out of that fund towards the parks and recreation budget. So the centralized fund is something we have never managed before. It's something that we have to figure out as we are going along with that. But it's a centerpiece of our budget, and it's a centerpiece of our reopening of the city of Monterey as well. So I hope I didn't bore you too much with those budget details, but it's fascinating for me to look at all the aspects and try to figure out the metrics also to ensure that we are successful. But we have a great finance team and a great team all around in the city, and I think we can make that happen. The other part of the budget that is important to note is that we will go back to the council probably every 2-3 months, as we are tracking also key data points in our revenues. And with that, the key data points will be checking how is the sales tax coming in, how is the hotel tax coming in, etc. How are people embracing again the sports center and are coming back to us? So just last night, we got a report from one of our consultants who are tracking sales tax across the state. And what they reported to us is that statewide, the sales tax has received significant hits with respect of remitting sales tax. And what that means is, even though every single one of us kept buying groceries and kept doing some sort of consumption from home, um, the governor's announcement in early March or in March to basically allow deferment of sales tax, which again is something that was on the books for many years that this was possible, but that a lot of business have taken advantage of that, and that's good because we need our businesses to function as well. But the folks who are carrying that water right now and having the challenges, these are the cities. So with respect to the budget, I shared with you 2 weeks ago, sales tax for January, February came in at about 78%, 78% below previous January, February sales tax. And that's a strong indicator that businesses have taken advantage of not remitting sales tax today, but deferring that payment for up to 12 months. And it's no secret that the sales tax across the whole peninsula, every single city had the same reduction of sales tax in the very high percentages, as well as the whole state. And that was the email I received last night, that the whole state shows this reduction in sales tax. So we will keep tinkering, looking at all the decision points, and we will go back to the council and adjust our budget accordingly. I hope that every time we go back to the council, every 2 months, every 3 months, we will have good news. We will upwards adjust our numbers. But that is my last item. I will talk about how we are looking at COVID-19. Um, there are a lot of known unknowns that we have to tackle. With that, I want to talk briefly about the reopening of the city of Monterey, and here I want to be very specific about city facilities. So by all means, the library is open. It's not open, so you cannot just walk into the library and stroll around and pick up a book from the shelf, but it is open to the extent that you can go and order a book online, and we will find the book on the shelf, and we will put the book into a bag, and we will notify you that you can come and pick up your bag, and it's basically curbside service right now at the library. And it has been very well received, that service. We started that last week, Thursday. We were the first public library in the county that is offering this service. And I heard from our library director that we are working on a backlog. We had over 2,200 items in the beginning that were requested by customers. And I think we are now down to about 800 items, and people are embracing that service and are bringing us their request, and we are packing it for them and helping them to read again, because again, reading is a very, very essential activity for all of us. It makes us smarter and makes us participate in society. So the library is open with in that respect. We have employees in the background working, as well as volunteers helping us to find the books on the shelves. But also, every single book that is returned has to be quarantined, and every single book that has to be returned will be treated as an item that we have to uh, be conscientious of a possible COVID-19 carriers. Just imagine, when you read a book, people sneeze, they cough, there's something going on. So that's all also in the background. So when a book returns to us, it doesn't go back on the shelf. It's being taken care of, cleaned, quarantined, and then put back on the shelf. Again, there's a lot of work in the background that we have to do under the COVID-19 regimen. The other element is the sports center I wanted to talk about. We will be opening the sports center tomorrow. 8 o'clock, the first group of 20 folks will be entering the sports center. And every 15 minutes, we will bring another group of 20 folks into the sports center, up to 80 folks on up to 80 folks at any given time per hour in total in the sports center. We have spaced our fitness equipment throughout the whole sports center. So the gymnasium is now also a room where you have fitness equipment spaced out. As you know, you cannot play basketball or any team sports right now. So we are using that space as additional space for fitness equipment. And we have over 100 pieces of equipment spread out through the conference center. So tomorrow, you can sign up online. We have those links posted, and then Presser, just want to say we also have the online options on our website for the library, monterey.org, and please look on the library link as well as the sports center links to sign up for books or sign up for the sports center. But it is a sign up in the sports center by name, because we have to limit it to the first 20 per group. So we start at 8, then continue at 8:15, then we go to 8:30, 8:45, etc., etc. We will shut down the sports center around 1 o'clock. We will conduct another deep cleaning of the sports center and open it up again at 3 to, I believe, 6 o'clock right now, or 7 o'clock. I'm not quite sure about this, but you find this online, to allow people again to work out. And online registration started last night, I believe, at 7 p.m. And I know that a lot of folks have already signed up. We will be open 6 days a week. Sundays will remain closed, and we will check out how the system works. And we have sufficient staff out there that ensures that the equipment will be cleaned after each usage. And there are a bunch of new rules, and I really hope that our signage will guide you if you are in the sports center and how to behave, because you have to play with us. If the customers are not working with us, we will have to adjust our system strictly, because if visitors are not leaving after 60 minutes of workout, if we are exceeding the magic number of 80 right now, we have to find ways of ensuring that people leave the facility because we cannot overcrowd the facility. Certain elements of the sports center are still closed and will remain closed, such as the locker rooms and the showers. We also have the swimming pool closed for right now. Having said that, we are working also on a solution to bring back the lifeguards and other folks that we need to operate the swimming pool as early as July. Again, at that time, we hope we can open the sports center with respect to the fitness areas and the pool area. We're taking small steps. We have to take small steps in the reopening because, and that's now leading me almost to my last topic, the COVID-19 issue, the pandemic. We have to learn also how to operate under the new paradigms. We have to learn how to operate under the new conditions of operation. And I tell you today that I think we have thought about everything for tomorrow's opening at the sports center. In the end, every single day we will learn something new, and every single day we will see how our folks, our customers, how you are reacting to the various things that we have implemented. There will be a wellness check before you even enter the sports center. We will take your temperature. We will ask you questions. When you sign up, you will also make certain declarations with respect to your health. And going forward, we will continue to tinker with that system. That's what I call it, to tinker with it and become smarter how we are doing that. The other part that you need to be aware also is the following: revenues. And when I talk about the sports center, here's what actually happened for a lot of customers. A lot of people came to us and said, "Let me cancel my membership. I just became unemployment. We would like to get a refund." And we issued a lot of refunds. But a lot of other customers said, "Well, the sports center is closed now. I cannot use it. Would you extend the membership for the time it has been closed?" And yes, of course. So for the time from March 13 to June June 19th, uh, this is the credit. We will give folks then an extension of their membership for those additional months that they couldn't use it. So remember what I said a couple of minutes ago about the budget. Our metrics, again, we are fully ramped up right now, but we also have to now look at the cost of how we are operating, because even though people have paid for it, we're giving, of course, people a three-month credit for not being able to use the sports center. And during those 3 months, of course, we had still all the employees that were working at the time on payroll, because, as you remember, unfortunately, we had to lay off many of those team members effective June 2nd, because unlike private industry, and thankfully, unlike private industry, we are going through a process of laying off employees. And it took us, between the announcement of the layoff and the actual layoff, about 45 to 60 days. So, having said that, I want you to be aware that these are also elements that affect the budget, and we have to see how we are operating the sports center and how the revenues are coming in there as well. I am very glad that we are reopening the gym tomorrow, but that leads me to item number 4, which is I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19. And as you see in the county, the numbers are increasing. Yesterday, the COVID-19 positive rate increased by 60. And when you look at the breakdown of the geographical areas, those numbers of positive cases are mainly in the Salinas and South County area. So they are not here on our peninsula per se. But of course, we are just one county. This is not the county of the Monterey Peninsula. This is the county of Monterey, including our South County cities and partners there as well. And as such, what happens in the county may or may have an effect on the city of Monterey and our operations here. When you look also at the statewide numbers right now, the governor is reassuring all of us right now that the state is monitoring those numbers and has those numbers also under control, and that they will be proactively dial back the numbers um, if something happens there. So the the concern that I have is that as the numbers are increasing statewide, we might be seeing a dialing back on certain elements, certain reopening. And I want to give you the assurance that, like we did when we declared as one of the first cities on the peninsula a local emergency on March 13th, long before, not long, but quite a bit before the state issued a declaration of emergency, and quite a few days before the county reacted, we will be looking very carefully at operations such as the sports center. And do we have to dial back our operation there? Is it really, when we look at the spread of COVID-19, is it really something that we should continue operating? So we will make all those decisions also in conjunction with local data and also with the general understanding and how the pandemic is developing. Because frankly, the pandemic isn't over yet, and a lot of folks are refusing to say we're in a spike right now. We are still in the first wave. So, and I have prescribed to that, and it was very important for me during the budget meeting also to tell the council that we do not know with our budget whether we are in stage 3 moving to stage 4, or whether we are working in stage 3 moving back to stage 1. These are concerns that I have. These are concerns that I share with the council. These are concerns also that I share with our staff, and that those concerns also determine our cautious reopening. We don't want to be the first. We are the first library. We are the first city. We had the first newspaper. So many firsts, but we don't have to be the first in being progressively opening city facilities. And you saw that we took our time to reopen the gym, and we will continue being cautiously, because we want to be cautious for you, and we want to be cautious also for our own employees. I want to answer a few questions that I just saw online. Yes, you can use also our system to download books online. The system is called Hoopla, Hoopla. If you have a library card, you can use the Hoopla system, Hoopla, to download electronic books. You can also download videos there, or stream movies on the Hoopla site, Hoopla. So please check that out. If you have questions, contact the library. And Margaret, yes, you can also check out DVDs from the library as well. And uh, I just say it. I need to um, uh, tell you, Margaret. I'm 90% sure. So I apologize if that piece of information is wrong, but I think DVDs are also items we can check out and quarantine and return to the users. So last question from Dan. Dan had a question if I noticed that garbage pickup service often leaves a mess. Um, Garbage pickup often leave a mess because people are not packing their stuff inside the trash cans as required. Uh, the residents are required to put this all into sealed plastic bags, especially if you are uh, talking about the brown bags. In the blue bins, the blue bins do not require you to have it in a plastic bag. Actually, in the blue bins, you should have your stuff loose in there, and it is part of the waste hauling that when you lift up a can and you put it into the trash can or into the hopper of the refuse truck, that stuff flies out of that. So it is unfortunately that way. The less you put in there, I guess, the better it is. Or if you stack it smartly, it is probably avoiding messes. We always have wind on the peninsula, so then there's not a lot we can do to take the trucks and have somebody behind them clean up. Monterey City Disposal is providing street sweeping services, so with that, we made them responsible also to clean up the quote unquote mess that may be behind it. But I tell you from my own home, I can tell you always on Mondays there are two, three pieces of paper that I always find somehow somewhere in front of my gate that are blowing from there, and I've been used to pick it up, and that's it for me. Of course, if there are huge messes, don't hesitate calling us or calling Monterey City Disposal, and they will come and clean it up. I know this is not a perfect solution, but it's the best we can do. And twice a month, Monterey City Disposal comes by and street sweeps. Um, Question also from Tammy: when do you think the aquatherapy will begin again? I think we are quite away from that for a while. Let us first open the pool in July. Let us see how this is working. If the pool is open in July, one of the things that I share with our staff is also it will allow still people who had aquatherapy before to maybe return and use the noodles there and do your own therapy, do your own exercises for a while. Having said that, we will try to test literally the waters and ask for signups and see how this will go, and we'll reinstate those services. But again, like I shared with you, we want to go slow, we want to go cautious, we want to watch the numbers, and we don't want to overextend ourselves as we are opening up. Last piece of information that I want to share with you, Schalze Center, our senior center, we are redesigning right now an area in front of the building. So that has nothing to do with reopening or opening, but there are good things going on. We're using the time right now for some construction work that has been going on there for about 4 weeks right now. But we restart the food program sooner or later. The food bank usually comes once a week on Mondays, and we are working right now is to reestablishing a food bank program there for seniors to pick up bags of food that they used to do until March. And we hope that this will be successful as well. Talking about food, the Great Plates program that was established by the governor has been extended, not unfortunately through the end of July, but only through July 10th. And that is a sign of certain discussions and disagreements between the governor and the state legislature. The governor wanted to extend it throughout July, and the state legislature basically said, not so fast. We got to look at the cost of all the various things that the governor has implemented throughout the past month through executive orders. And so, what I encourage you to do also is pay attention to Sacramento, because a lot of the things that have been launched over the past months through executive orders and the emergency powers of the governor are now coming to discussion points with the state legislature. And the state legislature, of course, these are all the elected officials that we put into office. They want to have a word to say now as well, and you will hear interesting discussions coming down as they are struggling to create the new fiscal budget for the state of California. So will be interesting to watch. And again, our city budget has been launched past this Tuesday, and we are looking forward in getting things done in Monterey in a cautious way, but also in a way understanding completely our role, which is to serve the public. So, with that, thank you, everyone. We'll quickly answer the last question. Yes, we are engaging community services officers all across town at Fisherman Wharf, at Cannery Row, to remind people of wearing face coverings. We have done that. I gave you a few examples. And yes, that is absolutely what community service officers are doing, and are that's why we created them as basically not a person in a police uniform, but somebody who is in that section between law enforcement and being a friendly advisor. With that, I thank you all for the time you spent with me. I apologize; it went about 15 minutes longer than I wanted to speak, but I hope it was informative, and I am hoping you all stay healthy, you stay safe, and keep your fingers crossed that in 2 weeks we have a little bit more of good news to share. I'm personally cautiously optimistic, and we are getting somewhere, and I'm pretty sure that Monterey will is on the right launch path. So with that, have a safe weekend and see you around City Hall soon. Bye bye.